I first met him in 1990 when we commissioned his debut feature film for the BBC. Originally called Cello, it was later named Truly, Madly, Deeply. It tells the story of a woman coming to terms with the death of her husband.
Mostly when I'm walking, at night, or anyway, by myself. If I'm frightened, then he'll turn up. He'll talk about what I'm doing, you know, some advice. He'll say, "Don't be frightened, I've told you, walk in the middle of the road at night." And I do.
He kind of wrote it for you. He wrote it for the character, but he wrote it for you. Did he sort of share some of his thinking about that as he was writing it?
No, not at all. I mean, it was entirely his own very private process, writing anything, I think. But when I read it, it was full of stuff that we, you know, and other people had talked to him about, or little stories we'd told, or, you know, the rats were completely my rats. I'd lived in this disastrous flat, you know. The rat killer came round, and I told Ant about this mad character from Brent Council had come round to my flat, and he turned up in the film.
We've got a very serious problem here, Nina. We're talking a lot of rodents, we're talking infestation, we may even be talking nesting. Can I make a telephone call?
You know, and even the character, you know, the carpenter who won't leave and never really builds the shelves because he gets a crush on Nina, that had happened in my life as well, you know. He loved to hoover up the details, the tiny minutiae of people's lives, and no story was too small or too banal. I don't think he didn't know the meaning of the word.
How do you play a ghost? Clearly, this is a part that you might expect some guidance from him. I mean, in what way did he give it you or not give it to you?
There's a very difficult moment in that film where she first sees Jamie, and I remember him saying, "There's no way we can rehearse this." And so he just put enough cameras around the room, and we didn't know what we were going to do. It was never rehearsed, it was never blocked. It was just down to, I'm there, I'm standing there, Juliet turns around, then what happens, happens.
I tell you what he did that was so remarkable. It was a first film, he'd never directed before. He just encouraged the whole unit to think, to focus down on that one point of whatever the emotional needs of the character were at any one moment. And they did, because everybody was in love with him. You know, he could charm an entire film crew easily, and did.
Standing on a set, up to the day he died, was the place where he was happiest. He felt totally at ease, and particularly with the creative elements and the actors. He knew he'd fallen into what he was going to spend, hopefully, the rest of his life doing.
Is the coat you wear?
Jamie, baby. That scene, we didn't really know what we were going to do, you know, half of it was sort of made up on the day, because it wasn't so much, there was dialogue written, but, you know, the dancing and the singing and that stuff. He had ideas, but we had to sort of, and he got the whole unit was sort of boogieing away behind their bits of equipment, you know, he created a party that day, and so when we started looning around and being daft and dancing and stuff, we were only one of a whole bunch of people in the room. We happened to be the people in front of the lens of it, do you know what I mean? When you're
Truly, Madly, Deeply is one of the great romantic films, and for some reason or other I want to say it's a romantic comedy, because of course the strange thing was it was a very funny film, and particularly as the dead people piled up in the living room. It is a very precious small film gem, and I think that people who are making films for low budgets in the UK will look at that film and say, oh wow, you can get a lot done, you can deal with something big, you can deal with a high conceit. You know, in some ways there's a line from Truly, Madly, Deeply to Shaun of the Dead that you can take just North London or South London and do something sweeping in it. for not that much money.
Perdóname.
Forgive me.
Si tú no vives.
I know this poem. If you are not living.
It's difficult to even think about that film, let alone to watch it, and not see in it a sort of uncannily this theme of absence.
The parallel between Jamie's young, unexpected death. I found my copy of the screenplay that he'd given me the other day, and in the first page he inscribed it with this poem, which is called Absence. It's this poem about not being there.
My feet will want to march to where you are sleeping, but I shall go on living.
Do you want me to go?
No, never, 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 never.
My assistant said, "You've got to see this movie." I flew to London like 2 days later. I sat in the office, you know, on a freezing night, and I watched Truly, Madly, Deeply, and I was in tears. I mean, by the end of it, and how beautiful and romantic and fabulous it was. I said, "Who is this Anthony Minghella?" I got him on the phone. I said, "Anthony, I'm Harvey Weinstein. I'm Miramax. You know, you have to let me have the movie." He said, "You're late." I said, "What do you mean I'm late?" You know, he said, "You know, Samuel Goldwyn has it, Tom Rothman. You're late." You know, and I said, "I'll never be late again."